Okay, so now we are moving on to the body. So on our reference photo, our owl has a pretty white breast in here. Well, off-white, I should say. Darker sides. And that's what I did for this owl here. So for where the wings are, we're going to be taking our dark color and going down, and then for our breast, we're taking our white base or off-white base, and then we'll be streaking in more feathers. So I'm still using that pointy tipped brush. That's my favorite, but you can also use your bigger brush to really get on the initial paint. I'm gonna mix up a little bit of the off-white and just start throwing it down. Get it on there, get it on the canvas. You can also take those colors that you were already using and start streaking them in just a little bit by picking them up on your brush and not mixing it all, and that'll make that natural kind of streak look. You're gonna go all the way up to this base we put down when we are doing the face. And streaking that down, and we're keeping our brush strokes in the direction that the feathers go. So up and down, not side to side. And this is when you can cover just a little bit of that branch that we worked so hard on earlier. Like the feathers are coming down, but I would only do like little tiny, kind of the very tips of the feathers going, resting on that branch there. So I'm gonna take those colors, keep streaking them. And then I'm gonna leave a little bit on the side because we're gonna be taking a much darker color. And no point putting down white when we're gonna just be covering it up. So let's see here. Mixing a little bit of brown. So that's a nice base. Get that on there. Then, so for this, I like to just take black at first, especially if I'm changing the shape. So when I was looking at my painting earlier, I noticed it looked like a pretty skinny owl, like it was holding its feathers in, not really floofing out. So I might go out just a little bit more. Maybe it's a chilly night, the owl wants to be a little floofy, or it's a warm night and they have their feathers in. They don't really need to floof out to retain heat. Wow, I put a lot of paint on my brush. You can just blend it on down. And I didn't clean off my brush in between, so you see how it gets lighter as I apply it. It's blending out with that white that I used. That's okay. It's a natural transition. All right, so I got that down there. Get that onto the canvas. Check my shape. Do I like it? I do. So I'm gonna take my brown, streak that in. Streaking that in. All right, and it just extends a little bit up. And then I'm gonna take my paint, white paint, and just go over edge to transition it. There we go. And so from there, and you can also use that paint and start flicking that in to the breast to start adding those layers, but I think that we want to finish these sides first. So I get a little distracted and a little excited about it sometimes. So we're going to do the same thing. Take a good amount of black on your brush and just streak all the way down, smoothing out the side of the owl. You notice you'll still have some on the other side, so again, flip your brush over and streak. Go. All right, that looks good. thicken up that streak, a little bit more black. Going in here, start doing lighter strokes for feathers. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my white, streak that in there. They don't have completely black wings. This is just kind of like a shadow. Their wings match their back, which is a darker brown and gray color that looks very much like the bark of a tree. Really helps them camouflage during the day. And that's why it's pretty hard to find owls during the day. They have such good camouflage. They look just like the tree bark. And I have a little bit more brown in there, so I'm just going to streak in the brown. It'll blend a little bit. All right, and again with the white, it's getting a little lighter than I want it to be. So, well, it's still what I like to do this, but it has some downsides because it'll get lighter the more you work on it. So now wipe off my brush a little bit, and actually you can get off some excess paint by just putting it on the body, because that will help the layers we're going to be building. Put a little bit on there, get that transition in. That looks pretty good. And this is a good time to add that darker color to the top of the white to transition this dark section to the white section. But going back to the wing, taking the black, darkening it up if it got a little bit lighter than you wanted. I do this with the brown too. I do longer strokes for this, and then there we go. That's good. All right, so the feathers on the wings, the sides of the owl look good. And then I would work on that transition. So little tiny brush strokes, streak through the body, down to the branch, and you can do a little bit darker. I like to have a lot of dark on the branch where it kind of gets covered up. The shadow of the owl connecting, sitting back on the branch. Okay, now we are building back in that light color. Take a little bit of white mixed with brown, maybe white mixed with black too. Streak that in, get that nice rufous color with just the white and the brown. And really, I like to have my brush nice and wet, put on a good amount of paint so that doesn't show the texture of the canvas underneath. And that looks how I want it to. Different lengths of strokes, different appearance of feathers. And it's good that it looks random. It looks random on the owl too in nature. I do now a gray, white. You might notice there's some just blacks. And now this is your time to just kind of go crazy and really streak in those different colors. You can do as much blending or as little as you want. I like to have high contrast on mine so it really stands out when you're farther away. So lots of lights next to the darks. Looks pretty good, in my humble opinion. pretty build up with paint. Take a step back. Oh, it looks pretty good. Admire your beautiful art. See what you might want to add. Does it look as light as you want it overall or as dark? I think I want a little bit more white, thin streaking. I have a lot of thick streaking in some sections, so you can kind of divvy that up with just little strips of white, but not totally covering. You can also do some stippled brush strokes too for the shorter feathers. So just little tiny plops of paint. Gives you a pretty different look from the streaking too. All right. That looks pretty good. And just like the reference photo, I'm going to add some longer dark streaks. Kind of randomly placed. That was a mistake. But, well, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents, as Barbara says. So you just have a little extra contrast there. You can always just blend it out. Beautiful. Nothing a little bit more paint can't fix. All right. So, once you are happy with your owl's feathers, that's when we are done with this portion. So there you go. The body of the owl is completed.